I was sitting in a coffee shop the other day just watching people, and I had this thought. It feels like we humans have this universal, almost
Mm.
this itching drive to see things that just aren't there.
Or at least things that aren't immediately obvious.
Exactly, to peer behind the curtain.
It's probably one of our oldest instincts, I think.
And it really doesn't seem to matter if you're, sitting in a dark room trying to channel a spirit, or if you're standing 100 meters underground in Switzerland smashing particles together.
We are completely obsessed with the unseen.
That is the common thread in the stack of research we have from the library today. I mean, whether you call it the spirit realm or the quantum field, we're all looking for the same thing.
Answers that lie just beyond our five senses.
And that's exactly where we're going. I mean, this stack of papers is maybe the most eclectic mix we have ever had for a deep dive. We're talking biblical spiritual gifts.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking crystal balls and mediums, and then we're talking about the Large Hadron Collider at CERN.
It sounds like a total mess when you list it out like that. But if you look a little closer, there's actually a spectrum there.
A spectrum from, what, ancient mysticism to cutting-edge physics, and, of course, all the conspiracy theories that kind of glue them together.
Right.
So the mission today isn't to prove whether ghosts are real or if you can talk to the dead. The mission is just to look at what people believe,
Yeah.
how they practice it, and the science, or maybe the lack of science behind it.
Exactly. We're reporting on this human pursuit of the unknown.
So let's start with that oldest pillar in our research, spiritual gifts. Now, depending on your background, that phrase might mean like a very structured list of duties in a church.
Or it might sound like a superpower that makes you feel like you don't belong.
Yeah, and our library highlights this divide just perfectly. On one side, you've got the traditional biblical framework. This comes mainly from the book of 1 Corinthians. It's very, very specific. It lists gifts like wisdom, knowledge, faith, healing,
Miracles, prophecy, all of that.
and the really famous ones, speaking in tongues, and then the interpretation of tongues.
Yes. But what I found fascinating in the breakdown was how these gifts are actually defined in practice. We tend to think of gifts as like lightning bolts from your fingertips,
Right.
but the research paints a much more subtle picture.
There was that one story in the files about a woman named Elaine that really grounded the whole concept for me.
The woman with the gift of wisdom, yeah.
So the research describes Elaine as this quiet, unassuming older woman. She's in a small group meeting, and there's this couple in total crisis, a huge family dispute, shouting, tears, the whole thing.
And everyone else is panicking.
Total chaos. Everyone's trying to fix it, offering advice, quoting verses.
And Elaine just sits there.
She just listens. And then after all this chaos, she says one sentence, just one. She said, God is not in a hurry.
And that just stopped the room cold.
According to the account, yes.
Yeah.
The panic just completely broke. And then she added, obedience never needs to rush. Our researchers pointed to that specific moment as the gift of wisdom.
That's such a crucial distinction, though. It separates wisdom from just being smart or, having a high IQ.
Right.
Wisdom in this context isn't about intellect. It's about providing a divine perspective. It's the ability to emotionally regulate an entire room just by seeing the situation from 30,000 feet up.
So it's less about predicting the future and more about just stabilizing the present. But then how is that different from the word of knowledge? Because those are listed separately, but wisdom and knowledge, they feel like synonyms to me.
They're very distinct in this framework. So if wisdom is perspective, knowledge is just information. The classic example they gave is the story of the Samaritan woman at the well. Jesus speaks to her and knows these specific facts about her life, like that she's had 5 husbands, without ever being told.
So it's knowing facts you couldn't possibly know.
Precisely. It's described as this sudden download of clarity about a person or a situation that you just couldn't have figured out through normal observation.
Okay, so this is where the research took a turn that I thought was really interesting. It got into how these gifts are supposed to be used. Because if you have people just shouting out prophecies and knowing secrets, it sounds like, it sounds like chaos.
And it can be, which is why the texts put so much emphasis on decency and order. This is from Paul's letters. He was writing to a church that was, frankly, a bit of a mess.
Everyone was trying to use their gift at once.
Exactly. And one of our researchers used an analogy for this that I did not see coming.
The breastfeeding analogy.
It is vivid, isn't it? But it makes the point about context so well.
Okay, break that down for us, because that seems like a really strange comparison for, like, spiritual ecstasy.
The argument went like this. Breastfeeding is a biological function. It is natural, it is necessary, it's a life-giving act designed by nature or by God in this context. It's a good thing.
Right. Makes sense.
But the source argues just because it's natural and right doesn't mean it's appropriate to do it aggressively in the middle of a crowded room without any discretion at all. And that analogy was used to explain things like speaking in tongues.
So the idea is, just because you feel a spiritual urge like shouting out in a prayer language, it doesn't mean you have the license to just disrupt the whole community.
That's it exactly. The text calls for clothing the uncomely parts. Not because the gift is shameful, but for the sake of the people around you, especially outsiders who might walk in and think everyone's lost their minds. You treat it with some privacy and respect.
It's about the group over the individual experience.
All right, it's community focused.
Okay, so that's the structured church view. But then we have the other side of our stack, the New Age or chosen one perspective. And the vibe here feels almost the opposite.
It's very different. If the biblical view is about fitting into a community, this other perspective is often about feeling totally isolated from the world because of your gifts.
The black sheep syndrome.
Yeah. The researchers list these common signs people report, like divine intuition, knowing immediately when someone has bad energy, even if they're smiling at you.
Or visionary sight, seeing through deception.
Right. But unlike the church example, this often leads to a person feeling like a complete outcast.
And we have to mention the angel numbers. The research brought up the 777 phenomenon.
Oh, yeah. For anyone not deep in the TikTok algorithm, this is all based on numerology, the belief that there's a divine connection between numbers and events.
It's finding patterns in the noise.
Exactly. So in this culture, seeing repeating numbers like 11.11 or 777, it's not a coincidence, it's a sign. You'll see thousands of comments on a video saying, I claim this.
Like a digital amen.
It's an affirmation. It's a way of saying, I'm part of this tribe. I'm open to this energy. It's so much more focused on individual empowerment than the service to others model we just talked about.
So we have the internal experience, the gifts. Now let's talk about the external tools. Because if you believe you have this sixth sense, how do you actually use it? The section on the mechanics of divination was fascinating. It really tried to explain the how.
It attempts to demystify the whole process. Take scrying, for example. Crystal balls, black mirrors, bowls of water.
Which, let's be honest, makes most of us think of a cartoon fortune teller.
Of course. But the mechanics described are actually rooted in physiology. It's not that the crystal ball has a 4K movie playing inside it.
Right.
It's about a technique they call soft eyes.
Soft eyes.
When you daydream and you're staring at a wall, but you're not actually focusing on the wall, your vision just goes a little blurry.
Yeah, totally. Check it out.
So when you do that intentionally into a reflective surface, you're basically depriving your visual cortex of clear data. And this is where it gets cool. Your brain hates ambiguity. It hates noise. So if you give it visual static, it starts trying to find patterns.
Oh, that like pareidolia? Seeing faces in clouds or toast?
Exactly that. So the theory is that by inducing this state, you're allowing your mind's eye to project subconscious images onto that visual static. The scryer isn't seeing the future in the glass. They're seeing a projection of their own subconscious using the glass as a canvas.
That actually makes a lot of sense. It's a hack. You're hacking your own brain to see what's buried in there.
That's the psychological explanation for it, yeah.
And that seems to connect to the automatic writing technique mentioned in the notes. This one just sounded exhausting to me.
It's a discipline of fatigue, basically. The whole goal is to bypass the conscious editing part of your brain, your prefrontal cortex. That's the part that acts like a CEO, judging everything you say and write.
So how do you fire the CEO?
You bore them to death. One technique is to write a prompt like "Dear Higher Self" over and over and over again, maybe for 20 minutes straight.
Just dear higher self, dear higher self.
Until your hand cramps and your conscious mind just checks out. The theory is that once that editor falls asleep, the subconscious, or the spirit, depending on your belief, can slip a new word in. And it often starts with something simple like love or rest.
Okay, but let's play skeptic for a second. With mediumship talking to the dead, this is where the unknown gets really specific. And frankly, this is where most people just call fake.
And the practitioners know that. They're very aware of it. That's why the research makes a big distinction between just messages of love and what they call evidential mediumship.
Right. Grandma loves you is nice, but it could apply to literally anyone.
Exactly. Evidential mediumship demands facts. It demands hard data that the medium couldn't possibly know.
The shrimp story in our library was very specific.
The shrimp, yes.
So walk us through that one, because a medium hearing the word shrimp just sounds ridiculous on its face.
It does.
Yeah.
So the medium is in a session and keeps getting this image of broad brushstrokes and the word shrimp. It makes no sense at all in the context of a loving spiritual message.
Until the client speaks up.
Exactly. The client then reveals that just the day before, they were painting their shed, and the specific paint color they were using was called shrimp.
Okay, see, that's where I get stuck. Is that a cold read? Could the medium have stalked their credit card statement or something?
That's always the question. A skeptic would say it's a lucky guess or, high probability confirmation. But for the believer, that one specific detail, something so random and trivial, that's the proof. They call it a validator.
It's the kind of detail you can't really Google easily.
Another example was a medium hearing the names Buster and Buddy and the song I've Been Working on the Railroad.
Okay.
Turned out to be the nicknames of the deceased father's two dogs and the specific song he always used to hum.
It definitely pushes the boundary of coincidence. But the research also touched on a more intense version of this, trance mediumship.
Right. This is where the claim is that the spirit actually takes over the vocal cords or even the body. And I found the warnings in our library really interesting. They weren't saying don't do it because it's fake. They were saying don't do it because it hurts.
Yeah. They were really down on the 6-week online courses to become a medium.
Called it incredibly dangerous. The experts in our library suggest that a true trance state takes 15 to 20 years of disciplined practice to master safely. They talk about the massive physical toll, that a deep trance session can leave a medium physically sick for days.
So we've got people staring into water bowls, hacking their brains, channeling voices. But I want to bridge this to the other side of our stack, because there's another group of people searching for the unseen who aren't in a temple. They're in a tunnel.
The physicists.
Let's pivot to the Swiss Alps, the Large Hadron Collider at CERN. Because to the average person, what they do there looks an awful lot like magic.
It is the absolute frontier of the known universe. I mean, for context, the LHC is a 17-mile ring of superconducting magnets. It's the largest, most complex machine humans have ever built.
And their job is to smash protons together to recreate the Big Bang.
Essentially, yeah. They accelerate particles to 99.99% the speed of light and then collide them to see what falls out.
And they found the Higgs boson, the famous God particle.
Or the God particle, right.
Now, we have to clarify that name because it sounds super religious.
It does, and most physicists absolutely hate that nickname. It's not called the God particle because it's spiritual. It's because the Higgs field is what gives matter its mass. Without it, particles would just fly around at light speed and never form atoms.
So no stars, no planets.
No us. It's the creator of mass, essentially.
Okay, so that's the science. But they're also creating antimatter. And this is where the whole angels and demons plot comes in. Is there an antimatter bomb sitting in a vault in Geneva?
No. Absolutely not. The research is very clear on this, despite what Dan Brown wrote. Antimatter is real. It's the mirror image of normal matter, but creating it is unbelievably inefficient.
How inefficient are we talking?
It takes about 1 billion times more energy to create antimatter than the energy you actually get out of it when it annihilates. So you can't make a bomb if the battery required to charge it is bigger than the explosion itself.
Got it. So the science says no bomb. But that hasn't stopped the internet from completely freaking out about CERN. The conspiracy theories are just wild.
They are, and I think they really stem from that same deep-seated fear of the unseen we talked about at the start.
The portal theory.
Right. The idea that by smashing these particles at such insane energies, we are literally tearing the fabric of reality, opening a stargate to somewhere else.
Or a gate to hell.
Oh.
I mean, they didn't really help their case with the decor. They have a giant statue of Shiva the Destroyer right outside the main headquarters. That feels like a bold choice for a science lab.
It is symbolic. It was a gift from the Indian government. It represents the cosmic cycle of creation and destruction, which is exactly what particle physics studies. But yes, to a conspiracy theorist, it looks like they're worshiping the apocalypse.
And then there was that video, the ritual video. You know the one I'm talking about.
A total PR nightmare for them. A few years ago, this leaked footage appears showing people in black cloaks performing what looked like a human sacrifice right there in front of that Shiva statue.
I remember seeing that. It looked legitimately terrifying.
It did, but our researchers confirmed it was a prank. It was a group of bored grad students and scientists blowing off steam late at night. They faked the whole thing.
But the damage was done.
Completely. Once that video hit the internet, the truth didn't matter anymore. It just confirmed the narrative for a lot of people.
Hmm.
These aren't just scientists, they're sorcerers.
There's also the Mandela effect connection, right? The theory that CERN fired up the machine one day and accidentally bumped our entire reality into a parallel timeline.
Where the Berenstain Bears are spelled wrong.
Exactly. But this all seems to come down to the word dimensions, doesn't it? Because when a physicist says dimension, they don't mean what I mean.
No, not at all. When we hear dimension, we think of Stranger Things, the upside down, a parallel world with an evil version of you.
Right. Evil Spock with a goatee.
But in physics, a dimension is just a mathematical direction of movement. Think of the flatland analogy.
The ant on a sheet of paper.
Exactly. Imagine an ant living on a flat piece of paper. It knows forward, backward, left, and right. That's its whole reality, 2 dimensions. If you, a 3D human, stick your finger through the paper.
To the ant, a circle just appears out of nowhere. It's magic.
Because the ant can't comprehend up. When CERN scientists look for extra dimensions, they aren't looking for Narnia. They're looking for tiny, curled-up mathematical directions where gravity might be leaking out of our universe. They're looking for up.
So they are hunting for ghosts, just mathematical ghosts.
In a way, yes. They know that dark matter makes up 85% of the mass in the universe, but they can't see it or touch it. They are building these massive cathedrals of technology just to catch a glimpse of the invisible.
So what does this all mean when you zoom out? You've got Elaine praying for wisdom in a small room. You have a medium getting a vision of a shed-painted shrimp. And you have a physicist hunting for a particle that shouldn't exist.
When you lay them all out like that, the common thread isn't the supernatural, it's the discipline.
Discipline.
Think about it. The trance medium says, don't take a 6-week course. You need 20 years of practice. The physicist spends a decade building a machine just to get one piece of data. The biblical seeker spends a lifetime in prayer to develop wisdom.
That's a really good point. None of this is instant.
No. Whether it's spiritual or scientific, peering into the unknown requires this rigorous, painful dedication. It is not for the casual tourist. And it always comes with the risk of being misunderstood. The medium is called a fraud. The physicist is called a reckless sorcerer.
We fear what we don't understand.
We do. But we also can't seem to help but look. It's that itching drive you mentioned at the very beginning.
It really makes you wonder, if you strip away all the vocabulary, is the difference between a prophecy and a quantum prediction just the language we use to describe it?
That's the big question, isn't it? Are we looking at 2 completely different things, or are we just looking at the same fundamental mystery through 2 very different lenses?
Or are we all just knocking on different doors of the same house?
And if we are, we better be ready for whatever answers.
On that slightly terrifying note, thanks for taking this deep dive with us.
Always a pleasure.
And for you listening, keep your eyes open. Whether it's a gut feeling, a strange coincidence, or just looking up at the stars. Maybe the unknown isn't quite as far away as you think. We'll see you in the next deep dive.